I was not supposed to be anywhere near the royal corridor. On Avarice Prime, the capital world of the Kelran Dominion, there were layers to existence. Citizens, officials, nobles, high council, and above them all, the crown line. Humans occupied a thin, fragile thread somewhere below, useful curiosity. We were engineers, traders, consultants. We were clever with adaptive systems and surprisingly resilient in hostile atmospheres. But we were not royal, which is why I kept my head down as I hurried through the eastern wing of the Celestial Palace, reviewing the holographic schematics hovering above my wrist display. My name is Kaelin Maris, Terran Systems Architect, contracted to upgrade the Dominion's ancient gravity lattice, the very technology that allowed the palace to float above the capital like a shard of crystallized dawn. I had been warned repeatedly. Do not deviate from assigned corridors. Do not speak unless addressed. Do not make eye contact with members of the Crown Line. Simple rules. Rules I was following. Until I wasn't. The corridor I entered was quieter than expected. The walls shimmered with embedded starlight, faint constellations drifting beneath translucent crystal. The floor was polished obsidian, reflecting ceiling murals of ancient Kelran victories. I was deep in thought, recalculating phase alignment errors in the northern stabilizers. And then I collided with someone solid and unyielding. My wrist display shattered against the floor. I stumbled backward, barely catching my balance. I began. Then I looked up and realized I had just made the worst mistake of my life. She stood perfectly still, as if the universe had rearranged itself around her. Tall, composed, radiant. Her skin carried a faint silver undertone, like moonlight poured into flesh. Hair the color of deep midnight flowed over armor woven from living metal. Her eyes were not a single color, but a gradient of sapphire and violet, luminous and assessing. Every instinct in my body screamed one word: royal. Behind her, two armored sentinels froze, hands hovering near energy blades. The corridor's ambient light shifted subtly, reacting to her presence. "You were not watching where you were going," she said. Her voice was calm, even, but it carried authority like gravity. "I apologize," I managed. "I was reviewing system data. You were walking through the royal corridor." I swallowed. I appear to have taken a wrong turn. Her gaze did not waver. "You have." The sentinels took one synchronized step forward. "Forgive him, Highness," one of them said. "We will remove the human." "Highness." Of course. The realization settled heavily in my chest. I had collided with the crown princess of the Kelran Dominion, Princess Vaelira Thane, heir to 300 inhabited systems. I had seen her image during orientation briefings, a distant figure on ceremonial broadcasts, a symbol of continuity. She was far more intimidating in person. "No," she said quietly. The sentinels halted. Her eyes remained fixed on mine. "You said you were reviewing data." "Yes." "What data?" "The northern gravity lattice is experiencing harmonic drift," I replied automatically. "If uncorrected, it could destabilize the eastward levitation spires within 48 standard hours." The sentinels exchanged a glance. Vaelira's expression shifted, not softer, but sharper. "You are certain?" "Yes." "How?" I gestured toward the shattered display at my feet. I was running a phase variant simulation when we collided. A flicker, almost amusement, passed through her gaze. "You speak plainly. I've found it reduces confusion." The corner of her mouth moved slightly. Most in this palace prefer confusion. That was not something a princess was supposed to say. She stepped closer, close enough that I could see faint geometric patterns glowing beneath her skin, bioluminescent markings denoting crown-line lineage. You are human, she said. Yes. Your species lacks innate gravitational perception. That's correct. Yet you claim to detect drift in a system my engineers designed. I hesitated. With respect, Your Highness, your engineers designed it 3 centuries ago. Silence fell like a blade. One sentinel's grip tightened on his weapon. But Vaelira did not look offended. She looked intrigued. You will come with me, she said. I blinked. I will. Yes. May I ask where? To determine whether you are incompetent or invaluable. Middle, the weight of inheritance. The royal corridor led to a chamber few outsiders had ever seen, the stellar atrium. It was not merely a room, but a suspended sphere of transparent alloy hovering at the palace's heart. Beneath us, the capital city glittered like a living constellation. Above, real stars pierced the planetary shield. At the center stood the Dominion's primary gravity core, a crystalline construct taller than a shuttlecraft, humming with restrained power. Vaelira dismissed her sentinels. Alone. With respect, I said carefully, if I fail whatever test you're considering, will I survive it? That depends on how spectacularly you fail. I exhaled slowly. Comforting. She approached the gravity core. Demonstrate the drift. I accessed a nearby interface. Dominion code was elegant but rigid. Beautiful. Traditional. Human systems were chaotic. Adaptive. Improvised. I overlaid my algorithm onto the lattice matrix. Within seconds, the projection revealed subtle oscillations, barely perceptible. Vaelira watched without blinking. Explain. The core is compensating for micrometeor mass displacement along the equatorial ring, I said. But the correction pattern is recursive. It's amplifying its own adjustment, which results in gradual destabilization. She moved closer to the projection. How would you correct it? Introduce randomized dampening intervals. Break the feedback loop. That would violate Dominion engineering doctrine. Yes. And you propose violating it. I propose preventing the palace from tilting 5 degrees east. She was silent for a long moment. Then, do it. No committee. No consultation. Just decision. I input the revised parameters. The core's hum shifted, deepening, smoothing. The oscillations vanished. Vaelira closed her eyes briefly, as if feeling the change. When she opened them, something had altered. You were correct. I try to be. She studied me differently now. Not as an intruder. As an anomaly. Walk with me, she said. We circled the atrium's perimeter. You are aware, she began, that Dominion culture does not encourage deviation. I've noticed. Stability is prized above innovation. And yet you brought me here. Yes. Why? She stopped. Because stability without adaptation becomes fragility. The admission surprised me. You don't sound like someone content with tradition. I am content with survival. Those aren't always the same thing. Her eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but recognition. You speak as though you understand rule. I don't, but I understand systems. And what is a dominion if not a system? The thought lingered between us. The whisper in the corridor. Over the following weeks, I was summoned frequently to the atrium. Officially, to oversee further lattice refinements. Unofficially, to talk. Vaelira asked questions few nobles would dare voice. Why do humans decentralize authority? Because we don't trust concentrated power. Yet you elect leaders. Yes. And remove them. She considered that. Removal is destabilizing. Sometimes necessary. She paced slowly, hands clasped behind her back. In 3 months, I ascend as sovereign regent. I heard. You will attend. I'm not certain I qualify. You collided with me in the royal corridor. That was an accident. In Dominion culture, she said evenly, nothing is accidental. Rumors began. Servants whispered when I passed. A human seen frequently near the crown princess. Advisors watched me with open suspicion. Then came the council session that changed everything. A fracture in the throne. The Dominion faced external pressure from the Vethari coalition, a rival power testing border treaties. The High Council convened in the Hall of Echoes. I stood at the periphery, observing. An elderly counselor addressed Vaelira. Your Highness, the Vethari demand concessions along the Sarah Belt. They are probing weakness, Vaelira replied calmly. Then we demonstrate strength. By escalating? By reminding them who we are. Murmurs of agreement. Vaelira's gaze flicked toward me briefly. Then back to the council. Military escalation risks full engagement, she said. Our outer fleets remain under-resourced. We cannot appear hesitant. Adaptation is not hesitation. The chamber grew tense. You sound uncertain. Another counselor pressed. Vaelira stood taller. I sound strategic. But I saw it. The isolation. After the session, she summoned me privately. They will push for conflict, she said. Do you want war? No. Then don't give them one. They interpret restraint as weakness. Only if you frame it that way. She turned sharply. Explain. Offer the Vethari shared mining rights in contested sectors, I suggested. Temporary. Conditional. Frame it as dominance through generosity. She stared at me. That is dangerously unorthodox. So was altering your gravity core. Silence. Then, unexpectedly, she laughed softly. You are either reckless or transformative. Maybe both. She moved closer, closer than protocol allowed. In the corridor, she said quietly, when you collided with me, you did not look at my rank. I was busy apologizing. You looked at me. The weight of that hung in the air. You are not like the others, she said. Because I'm human? No, she replied. Because you are unafraid of my proximity. My pulse quickened. Should I be? She held my gaze. Perhaps. The edge of choice. The Vethari response to Vaelira's proposal shocked the council. They accepted. Joint operations began within weeks. Tension eased. Trade stabilized. The High Council was forced into reluctant admiration. But admiration is not loyalty. A faction within the Dominion believed Vaelira's reforms diluted tradition. Whispers of human influence circulated. One night, I was intercepted in a lesser corridor. 2 nobles blocked my path. You presume much, one said coldly. I adjust gravity systems, I replied. That's all. You advise the heir. When asked, you will cease. I don't take orders from you. Their expressions hardened. Before the situation escalated, a voice cut through the tension. That is correct. Vaelira stepped from the shadows. The nobles bowed instantly. You will not harass my advisors, she said evenly. They retreated. When we were alone, she turned to me. You provoke them. I exist, I corrected. Her lips curved faintly. That too. She looked out over the city lights. When I ascend, opposition will intensify. Are you afraid? She was quiet for a long time. Yes. The honesty stunned me more than any royal command. I am expected to be infallible, she continued. Unyielding. Perfect. No one is. A sovereign must appear so. Or redefine what a sovereign is. She faced me fully. You believe I can. I know you can. The air felt charged. Why? She asked softly. Because you listen. For a moment, all protocol dissolved. She stepped closer, within arm's reach. In the corridor, she said again, you collided with me. Yes. And you did not kneel. I was off balance. A faint smile. If I asked you to kneel now. I held her gaze. Would you want me to? Her bioluminescent markings glowed faintly.
No.
Then I won't. Something passed between us then, not rebellion, not submission. Equality. Ending, a different crown. The day of Ascension dawned beneath twin suns. The entire Dominion watched as Vaelira stood before the throne of tides, an ancient construct of living crystal attuned to crown-line genetics. Tradition demanded a vow of continuity, a promise to preserve Dominion doctrine unchanged. The High Council waited. So did I. Vaelira's voice carried across the plaza. I vow, she began, to preserve the Dominion's strength. A murmur of approval. To protect our people. Another. To ensure our survival. Silence. Then she continued. And to evolve. The word rippled like shockwave. Might without adaptation is brittle, she said. Tradition without reflection is decay. We honor our past not by freezing it, but by building upon it. The council stiffened. But the countless citizens watching, did not protest. They listened. She placed her hand upon the throne. It ignited in brilliant light. Acceptance. The Dominion had a new sovereign. Later, in a quiet balcony overlooking the capital, she found me. You stayed, she said. I said I would. She removed the ceremonial crown, holding it loosely. I altered centuries of expectation today. Yes. They will resist. Yes. She stepped closer. And you? I'll still argue with you when you're wrong. Her laughter was soft, unguarded. Good. She looked at me, not as sovereign, not as heir, as Vaelira. In the royal corridor, she said, you collided with a princess. Yes. She closed the distance between us. Today, she whispered, you stand beside a sovereign. I do. And you still do not kneel. I met her gaze steadily. I stand. For a long moment, the city lights shimmered below us. Empires rise and fall on grand battles, sweeping declarations, violent revolutions. But sometimes, transformation begins with something far smaller. A misstep, a collision, a human who didn't look up in time, and a princess who chose not to look away. The royal corridor would remember that day as an accident. History would remember it differently. As the moment a dominion began to change. And it began when I collided with her.